Hello and welcome to another Unsourced Wall unboxing. This is one that I've been really anticipating, and I anticipated so much that I actually forgot it even came out. And when I figured it out, I immediately went and ordered on Amazon and got it in just like under 24 hours. So that's really cool. Although you can see that it kind of almost didn't survive delivery process here. So let's get it open and see what exactly got me really hyped. And it's a comic, and I don't think we've done a comic in a long time here, but if you can make that out, it says Frank Miller returns to the Dark Knight universe. And if you know anything about Frank Miller's Dark Knight universe stuff, you probably know that this has to be Dark Knight Returns, The Golden Child, the latest of his entries into that whole arena. And it is probably one of my favorites. I don't have a lot of these in my collection. I think this is actually the first Dark Knight Returns or Dark Knight Verse comic I have to own, and that's for a pretty good reason. I enjoy those series, I like them a lot, but this one stuck out to me in particular mainly because, well, it's also a fourfold story. And if you know anything about my podcast or the first unboxing I did for the Absolute Fourfold edition, you know I love good fourfold content. And I have to say, despite a lot of preconceptions before this came out, that Frank Miller knocks it out of the park and gives us probably one of the best, most instantly iconic fourfold stories for the modern age. And yeah, let's crack this thing open. And there we have it. Beautiful cover art and beautiful art all around from Rafael Grampa with colors from Jordi Belair. And let's just crack this open because this is probably my first actual full-on deluxe edition in general. I usually get regular hardcovers and I don't really see the point in, going farther than that. But this was something that I definitely need to get the deluxe edition for because it is the story all by itself. No filler, no expansion, just the pure story as it was released. And honestly, if it had been part of an omnibus or another kind of deluxe hardcover set, like the original Strikes Again and Returns, I probably would have gotten it too because it is just that good. I'm not a huge fan of the Dark Knight 3 Master Race. I thought that it didn't have that old school Frank Miller punch to it. I thought it was a little bit too, soft. It felt like a really huge concession to people who didn't like Strikes Again, which I thought was probably the most Frank Miller of any of the stuff in his Batman universe. But it had a lot of unique qualities. They made it unforgettable, insanely iconic in moments, and honestly really, really memorable, but in an exciting and captivating and engaging way. Like the introduction of the Question or the death of Captain Marvel and all sorts of stuff that just gave it a lot of punch to it. But the Dark Knight 3, The Master Race, felt like an average superhero comic. Like it had some trappings, had a little bit of social commentary, but it felt very by the numbers. It felt like any other wannabe Justice League light, Batman light kind of Elseworld tale. And I think Dark Knight Returns, The Golden Child is probably the best of both worlds here because it is, unlike 3, written solely by Frank Miller, while 3 was co-written and co-plotted and co-scripted by Brian Azzarello. So it's kind of him unfiltered, and it's worth all the best for that. Now, the Master Race had art from Andy Kubert, and he did a good job mimicking the structure of the pages that Frank Miller did, especially for Dark Knight Returns, while Rafael Grampa doesn't. But what he does get is the intensity of those pages. Like there is such a raw, unbridled passion and energy in this art that Dark Knight 3 only wishes it could get at. Like there's just something here that is just so expressive and just insanely off the charts. Like a lot of pages here, especially in the color, especially just how insane the visuals can get. Feel like they're just jumping right at you and punching you in the face, but in an entertaining way possible, if that makes any sense. And yeah, at first I was kind of reluctant about this. I thought it was going in a weird direction. It felt like a concession. It felt like it was still going to be like a Dark Knight 3 style bland mess, especially with Carrie Kelly. Now, at the end of Dark Knight 3, they made Carrie Kelly the new Batman, which, I have no problem with that. But it did feel like it was just jumping ahead when Dark Knight 3 had a small little beat where she becomes the new Batgirl properly. Actually, it was Robin first, then Catwoman, and then she became Batgirl. And she had this really insanely well done, garish, gaudy costume that only Frank Miller could think up. And I just want to see more of that. I thought that making her proper Batman just so soon, while that costume and that role only gets like a couple panels at most to even breathe, felt like, a waste opportunity. But Carrie Kelly in this is amazing. She is probably like the apotheosis of Frank Miller's idea of the insanely energetic and incredibly like overbearing kind of Batman. He has a Batman, especially his young Batmans in Superman Year One and All Star Batman and Robin, where they're a little bit more brash, a little bit more cocky, insanely egotistical and narcissistic. And while that might not be words that are meant to sort of characterize Carrie Kelly, as a youthful character, as like a young woman, she plays it off incredibly well, and it makes her one of the most entertaining characters in the entire saga, I have to say. Now, this is also announced as like a Fourth World story, and I was, also really reluctant to see what that even meant, because so few writers understand the Fourth World, so few writers know how to handle that, and so I didn't have much confidence or faith in Frank Miller. But what he does, and he does this so well, is that he takes this whole modern preconception that Darkseid is meant to be this monolithic force of pure evil, and that he's like just a totem and an ideal, and makes him very dimensionless and very characterless, and it kind of flattens his personality. It makes him so much less interesting. And that's not what Kirby and what the original Fourth World stuff was about at all. It's a very modern take on Darkseid. So what I love about this, and why I think it's such a great Fourth World story, is that what Frank Miller does is that he takes that, he uses that, he integrates that into the story, and he does it really well. He does that idea probably the best out of any other writers that have tried to make it like a huge thing. And there's a lot that I can name, but he doesn't just do that. He does it really well, and he makes it really impressive and really imposing. But then he goes ahead and he brings it back to roots. He makes it very Kirby-esque. He makes it very Hunger Dogs-esque. He takes that idea, that character, and he brings more of like an actual Kirby philosophy to it, which is that Darkseid was meant to be more like a commentary and critique, and like just a take that and a punch to the face to like corrupt authority that is just pathetic and weaselly and self-serving, and in actuality just really small. That's the entirety of what the Hunger Dogs is about, that corrupt power is only as powerful as what we give them, and that anything can be overridden and overtaken by like the power of the people. And that Darkseid, for as strong as he is and for as powerful and terrifying as he is, he's nothing against the mob, the masses, the combined force of everyone else around him. And that's what this does. And it makes it even more pathetic to even witness than Kirby did with the Hunger Dogs. And the Hunger Dogs ends with Darkseid pretty much losing everything, losing his sons, losing his family, losing his friends, and just being completely downcast and ignored, just fobbed off as saying like, this wasn't important, you're not important, and just being left there to rot alone. And this takes that like to an even further step by, just having him like completely disgraced, gets hit in the head with a rock and it goes bonk. And it's wonderful. And I think that captures such a raw emotion that only really Kirby understood. And it's nice to know that Frank Miller understood that too. And so, I really love this one shot. And was it crazy to get a hardcover for just a one shot? Yeah, kind of. I probably won't make a decision like this again, because it is frightfully thin for like a $20 thing. I'm glad I got it. I'm glad it's my collection. There are so few really great Fourth World stories out there to support, to put the money where the mouth is, as you would say. And I'm glad I was able to, because this series means so much to me, because the characters and the ideas and the concepts mean so much to me, that the premier creator was able to come out with something that really captured the essence. Well, yeah, I gotta have that. I gotta show that, it does carry that weight. And so, this is really great. I really love Rafael Grampa. I know that Frank Miller hasn't had the best transition into later art styles. I did love Xerxes. I think his art worked really well there. But if he wants to continue the Dark Knight Returns universe, which he said he wants to do, he has ideas for our Dark Knight Returns Part 4, then keep Grampa around. Like, JR Jr., who did Superman Year 1 with him, was able to capture some essence of what made, that raw emotion of the original Dark Knight Returns and Strikes Again so palpable. But JR Jr. can be kind of stale otherwise. While Grampa, man, Grampa goes all out and he holds nothing back, and it is just a treat. It's just a delight, and I think he really gets Frank Miller's like kind of energy and tone for these stories. You know, very colorful, very manic, very chaotic, but you know there's an elegance to it too. And again, one last thing I want to point out is I don't want to read anything out from the actual comic panels here, but on the inner flap you do get a quote from Carrie Kelly where she's going, "All you can do is fight crazy with crazy." And yeah, I know it might be a really sharp left turn for Carrie Kelly as a character, especially for those who only knew her from Dark Knight Returns, because, you know, that's her most iconic story and that's the first thing anyone thinks of. But, you know, I love that. I love the brashness of that. And, you know, if anything else, this is very, very brash. And wait, is there inner lion design? Yes, there is. Oh, and this is insane. This is incredible. It's Carrie Kelly throwing the flaming Molotov at something. Now I flipped through this when I was doing some cuts, and this is great because there is some back matter and it's kind of a cover breakdown and some art breakdown and some drafting. And so this is the very end, and it says that, you know, this was meant to be a kind of a symbol of protest, and Frank called it the propaganda poster. So to have that image as like the inner hardcover cover, you know, again, it captures that kind of mania that is so unique to Frank and now Grampa. So yeah, no, I hope I see more from these two, but loved it as a Fourfold fan, and I loved it as a later days Frank Miller Dark Knight Universe fan. I know that those are far and few in between, and Superman Year One did get some criticism, but even that was a blast. So glad to have it, and I hope that this was enjoyable, and, you know, grateful for anyone who listened through it. So thank you so much for that. I deeply recommend this to anyone who's interested because it is well worth the purchase, even though, yeah, it is really slim. And yeah, have a great one and see you again next time.